Hi, Grandma here, and I'm rereading chapter 19. For some reason, it only 2 minutes were normal reading, and the rest of the 42 minutes were slow motion. Anyway, chapter 19. As the date came closer, I grew more and more frantic about getting out for Irma Lee's party. Mr. Meltzer had warned the other prefects to keep an eye on me when they were on hall duty. Most nights, the prefect on duty would come to my bed to remind me not to try anything. My buddies said that would stop sooner or later. They said most of the prefects, although not Mr. Meltzer, liked to play poker when they were supposed to be watching us. They said the prefect in our hall would go back to the game eventually, but eventually never seemed to come. The night before the party, Mr. Meltzer was on duty again, and I lay awake for a while trying to think of a plan. If I managed to get out, I had to be able to get back in too. I still didn't have the carving, and I wasn't going to leave for good until I did. I needed a ladder or a rope. There might be rope in the supply closet in the basement. I fell asleep thinking about it. I don't know how long I slept, but Alfie's coughing woke me up. It sounded like he was choking. I sat up wondering if I should do something. The door opened. Mr. Meltzer came in, and I lay back again quick. He left with Alfie, and I closed my eyes, wishing Alfie would get better. Then my eyes popped open. Mr. Meltzer had taken Alfie upstairs to the nurse. He wasn't guarding us. I could leave. I stood up. Nobody else seemed to be awake. I tucked my slippers in the waist of my pajamas. I was going on a rope hunt. It didn't occur to me how dopey I was till I was creeping down the basement stairs. Mr. Meltzer wasn't going to stay upstairs forever. He would return to our room and he would check my bed, and I was done for. I stood there, 1 foot up, 1 foot down. I didn't know if I should rush upstairs and hope I made it before Mr. Meltzer did, but if I went back, I wouldn't get the rope, and who knew when I'd have another chance. The clock started bonging. I almost fell down the stairs. A lot of bongs, 10, 11, or midnight. It wasn't as dark in the basement as it had been in the stairs. There were small windows near the ceiling that let in a little light from the street outside. I could make out the shapes of the tables in the dining hall and the huge pillars between the tables. Beyond them were the furnace and the coal chute. Then Ed, the janitor's room, then the laundry, and then finally, miles from where I stood, the supply closet. I edged through the dining hall. As soon as I stepped beyond the tables, I stopped in surprise. There was no floor. It was just packed dirt. I hadn't noticed before when I was wearing shoes. I didn't like it. Who knew what was crawling around in it? It was cold, too, like everything else in the heatless house of Bloom. And this was dark, this was cold earth, like the ground in a graveyard. Dirt was quieter than concrete, though. I kept going. I passed the kitchen, the furnace, the coal chute. The worst part would be going by Ed's room. I prayed for his door to be closed. Standing in the shadow of the furnace, I peeked out. It was open. I inched forward, holding my breath till I heard the most beautiful music. Ed was snoring. I walked a little faster. Big sinks on my right, ringers on my left, clotheslines overhead, and mud squished between my toes. Ah! And there was a sucking noise. Whenever I took a step, I slowed down. There, that was quieter. Mr. Meltzer had probably returned to our room by now. This minute, he could be discovering I wasn't there. I kept on. Now the ground felt drier. This was the supply closet. I padded to it and turned the doorknob slowly. Slowly, it turned. It wasn't locked. I guess I didn't think anyone would raid it in the middle of the night, with Ed only a few feet away. I eased the door open. Don't squeak, don't creak. As soon as the open was wide enough, I slipped in. It was too dark to see anything. Slowly, I stretched my arm out in front of me. Nothing. Air. I turned to my right and reached out. My hand touched something cold. Metal. A bucket. I felt around next to it, something long and heavy. A crowbar. It would take me weeks to find a rope in the dark if there was a rope. I waved my arms gently over my head, taking tiny steps further into the closet, and then I felt what I was hoping for, a light cord. I eased the door shut and pulled the cord. The click sounded as loud as a cannon. I stopped breathing. I didn't hear anything from outside. Shelves went all the way up to the ceiling. There was a ladder, a step ladder, a cardboard box full of tools on the lowest shelf, paintbrushes on the shelf above, light bulbs, lots of stuff. And at my feet, a big coil of rope, thick rope, strong enough to hold my weight. I heard something. Slish, slish, very soft. I reached for the light cord, missed it, got it, clicked out the light, slish, slish. Then that sucking noise. Someone was crossing the laundry. I was trapped. The sucking sound stopped and the slish, slish started again. He was past the laundry, but why slish, slish? Shoes wouldn't sound that way, but slippers might. Probably it was Ed going to the toilet or prowling around because he heard a noise. My mind screamed at him. The toilet, the toilet. Go to the toilet. He did. The slish slish passed the supply closet. A few minutes later, the toilet flushed, and I heard him again, coming close. He stopped. Why? Sadie Lou was my first love. How I love that Sadie Lou. He was singing. There was an echo. It made his voice sound round and full. The song said he met Sadie Lou when they were 7, and it was love at first sight, but she was rich and he was poor, so her parents sent her to a school far away. Annabelle was my next love. How I loved my Annabelle. War came and Annabelle wasn't true. Jean Marie was my new love. How I loved that Jean Marie. But the war ended and he came home, leaving her behind. I wish he'd stopped falling in love. There was Bessie May, who married his best friend, and Rosalie, who married him but ran away with his brother, and Mary Ann, who died in his arms, and more. 3 ladies died in this song. I was going to get caught because of the song that went on forever. Finally, he found Sadie Lou again. He must have been at least 200 years old, after all the girlfriends and wives he had. Anyway, they were happy together. Sadie Lou was my first love. How I love that Sadie Lou. He stopped singing. Go back to bed. Go back to sleep. He started the Hanukkah song, Rock of Ages. Was he going to sing till the milkman came? I couldn't do anything. The rope was right here, but I couldn't take it and go. I started counting out minutes to see how much time was going by, but I lost track. He finished. I heard slish, slish again, and then sucking noises as he crossed the laundry, then silence. How long should I wait for him to fall asleep? I started counting again. This time I didn't let myself lose count. After 10 minutes, I pulled the light cord again and stood still to listen. I didn't hear anything, so I started wrapping the rope around my chest under my pajama top. There was much too much. I had to cut it. I measured out the right length. There was a saw way down in the toolbox with 100 things on top of it. One by one, I took out the screwdriver, the hammer, several clamps, a wrench, and put them on the ground. The chisel slipped out of my clammy fingers and landed in the dirt with a dull thud. I held my breath. Nothing happened. I lifted out a pair of pliers and a drill, and there was the saw. But sawing the rope was going to make noise, too much noise. This was ridiculous. I'd taken the chance of leaving our room. I'd gotten all the way down here, found the rope, found the saw to cut the rope, and now I had to go back without it? Mr. Meltzer was going to catch me. He'd take me to Mr. Doom, who'd kill me, and I'd have gotten nothing out of it. I wanted to punch something, but instead I started to unwrap the rope from around my chest. Bong, bong. The clock. Noise. I picked up the saw, fumbled with the rope. On the 5th bong, I started sawing. The rope was tough. Bong, bong. I was halfway through. Bong. Let it be midnight. Bong, bong. The saw cut on a matted spot. Bong, bong. It was through. I made it. I put the saw back in its box and placed everything else on top of it. I wound the rope around my chest again. I was done. The coil on the floor didn't even look much smaller. I clicked off the light, edged the door open, and glided toward the laundry. Between slow, muddy steps, I stopped to listen. Ed was snoring again. I eased the door to the stairs open. Silence. No Mr. Meltzer pounding up and down, hollering what he'd do when he laid his hands on me. So, since I've been lucky so far, I decided to go outside and try out the rope. Why not? Mr. Meltzer could catch me now, or later, after I'd had another adventure. But when I reached the first floor, I heard voices in the lobby. A woman was trying to dump a boy here. A prefect's voice echoed down the hall. No admissions at night. The voice became friendlier. But for a few bucks, I don't have any money. I'm not getting to hot water for nothing. Sorry, lady. She started yelling, I can't go back. I eased the door open a crack. The kid, she was trying to get rid of, couldn't have been older than 3. He's sitting on the floor, sucking his thumb. You can holler. I let the door close and waited a minute, but the argument went on. I started upstairs. On the second floor, I stood in front of the stairway door, too scared to open it. There was no keyhole to look through. I lay down and peered under the door, and there were Mr. Meltzer's feet outside our room. Why weren't they running around looking for me? Maybe he was waiting for me to come back. He was probably sitting there grinning over what Mr. Doom was going to do to me. It wasn't even 1 o'clock. He'd have to go to the toilet sometime. If I could get back in while he was in here, if I was in bed when the wake-up bell rang, he'd be confused. He wouldn't be sure I ever left. It would drive him crazy. I waited, stretched out on the cold floor, the chill seeping into me. If the other prefect, the one in the lobby, took this staircase, he'd catch me. But there was no other choice. The 3 o'clock chimes woke me. I didn't know how I could have been such a moron to let myself sleep. Mr. Meltzer's feet were still outside our door, but he could have gone to the toilet 7 times while I slept. I tried to think of a way to make him get up, a way to make a noise he'd have to investigate. There was nowhere near me. If I were a ventriloquist, I would throw my voice to the other end of the hall. Alfie started coughing. Mr. Meltzer's feet didn't move. Alfie stopped, then started again. Mr. Meltzer feet went into our room. Take Alfie to the nurse, take him. He came out with Alfie. Good. He started coming my way toward the staircase toward me. I raced downstairs. I passed the first floor and went down a half flight more. Mr. Meltzer's footsteps marching upstairs sounded like a one-man army. I didn't hear Alfie at all. Boom, 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 boom. The silence. I rushed upstairs and dashed into our room. Somebody was in my bed. Harvey, fast asleep. He'd saved me. I went to his bed. Somebody was sleeping there too. Then I looked closer and the sleeper turned out to be a mound of clothing. I went back to my bed and shoved the rope in my suitcase. Then I ran to Harvey's bed. Eli was sitting up. Why didn't you tell us you were going? I thought everybody was asleep, which was true, but the real truth was it never occurred to me to ask for help. You could wake us. You know, we always help a buddy. I really like the attitude those kids have of protecting each other and helping each other. It's like they've become a family since they don't really have any family, or most of them don't. Anyway, sorry I had to reread that, but meanwhile, if you want to look down the list, I have already read 20 and 21. Bye-bye.